This is CBC Vancouver News.
We have to have the shared goal of delivering housing for British Columbians who need that housing.
The Premier shares his plans to tackle BC's housing crisis, from striking down rental restrictions to new building targets. Also,
to the people of Surrey, I love you.
The verdict is in. Former Surrey Mayor Doug McCallum is found not guilty of public mischief after a trial. And a former Vancouver daycare operator is sentenced to jail after a toddler died in her care 5 years ago. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Benit Brach. Dan is away tonight. Premier David Eby has announced plans to help free up rentals and build more homes in BC with the Housing Supply Act. And as Mira Baines reports, under the Act, the province will have some teeth to enforce the rules if cities don't comply.
Premier David Eby says the Housing Supply Act lays a framework for creating more housing supply and the relationship between the province and cities to build more homes.
If there's an issue that's beyond their control, let's identify it. Let's address it together.
Likely the most contentious housing bill will be the Housing Supply Act, which allows the province to set housing targets and enforcement tools if cities don't comply.
We don't go immediately to stepping into a community and saying, you must approve this, you must approve that.
Eby says the province will coordinate with cities to support them as they create more supply, including affordable units. Cities will be required to submit housing reports to the provincial government every 5 years. The legislation will be brought into force in mid-2023.
We'll be starting with 8 to 10 municipalities with the greatest need and the highest projected growth. This legislation will help us create more housing where it's needed most.
Newly elected mayors and councillors across BC are taking a wait-and-see approach.
There will be a wide range of how this affects different communities, and some members will welcome greater provincial involvement, and others will be wary.
The BC government also has plans to amend the Strata Act to ban rental restriction bylaws to free up housing supply. It could affect roughly 3,000 units immediately. However, restrictions will be allowed for 55 and plus buildings and restrictions that ban short-term Airbnb rentals. But some think the housing supply problems are simply going to be made worse.
But it's just going to simply mean that when a unit comes up for sale, it's not going to be purchased by another occupant that's going to live there. It's going to be purchased by a speculator, and we're going to end up having more competition for these units.
The BC Liberals say the housing legislation is too timid by setting targets for cities instead of concrete actions. Still, Eby is hoping to push through several pieces of legislation by the end of this week. Mira Baines, CBC News, Victoria.
Surrey's former mayor Doug McCallum was found not guilty of public mischief in provincial court today. This all after being accused of lying to police and falsely accusing a political opponent. As Michelle Ghoussoub reports, the judge determined the physical and medical evidence proved McCallum's foot was run over.
As the judge read the verdict of not guilty this morning, there were dramatic reactions in court, with some people gasping in dismay, others crying a tear of relief. The question at the center of this much-watched trial: did the former Surrey mayor intentionally mislead police when he said his foot was run over by Debbie Johnstone? It took around an hour for Judge Reginald Harris to read his decision. In the end, saying the Crown hadn't proven beyond a reasonable doubt that McCallum had lied to police, and saying the physical and medical evidence indicated the 78-year-old's foot had been run over. McCallum gave only a brief statement, saying he was pleased with the verdict.
To the people of Surrey, I love you. I love all of you. Thank you.
McCallum didn't respond to reporter questions, but former Surrey City Councillor Laurie Guerra, who testified in the trial, spoke about the impact on his family.
When you're a Surrey resident and you're a law-abiding citizen, you think, wow, they must have something really big. Guess what? They didn't have anything really big. So where does that leave us? That begs the question, why do this? I'm really emotional because I just sat by the previous mayor, Doug McCallum's daughter, in the court and heard her just bawl. You know, they've been through so much.
Debbie Johnstone, the Keep the RCMP in Surrey campaigner at the centre of this case, was not in court today, though many of her supporters were in the gallery. And while the trial has wrapped, the not guilty verdict leaves open the question of whether or not the city of Surrey will now be forced to foot McCallum's legal bills. With today's verdict, the drama swirling around the former mayor of Surrey is over for now, though the future of policing in the city still up for debate. Michelle Ghoussoub, CBC News, Surrey.
A former Vancouver daycare operator has been sentenced to almost 2 years in jail after a toddler died in her care. Susie Sod pleaded guilty to failing to provide the necessaries of life for 9 children she was looking after, including the boy known as Baby Mac. As CBC's Josh Grant reports, Mac's parents say the sentence falls years short. And a warning, this story contains details that may be distressing.
Susie Yasmin Sod was handcuffed and led out of BC Supreme Court shortly after the judge sentenced her to 20 months in jail and 12 months probation. Justice Catherine Wedge told the Vancouver courtroom Sod deliberately deceived the parents whose children she cared for, crafting an elaborate scheme at her unlicensed East Vancouver daycare to make more money by caring for more children than was legally allowed. The court heard that Sod refused to let parents inside the daycare during operating hours and lied about the daycare's numbers. She would meet parents at the front or back door to hand over their children, not wanting them to see how many were actually inside. Under BC's Community Care and Assisted Living Act, unlicensed childcare operators can only care for 2 children at a time. When 16-month-old McCallan Wayne Sani died in Sod's care, she was watching 9 children. Baby Mac's parents were at Wednesday's hearing. His mother, Shelley Shepard, struggled to contain her emotions when Wedge described what happened on January 18, 2017. Wedge said Sod told police she put Baby Mac down for a nap that afternoon because he was sick. She left him unattended on the 3rd floor for over an hour with no audio or video monitor. When Shepard texted to say she was coming to pick him up, Sod found Baby Mac blue and unresponsive in a playpen. Sod told police that a set of string lights were dangling near the playpen. A 2018 lawsuit filed by Shepard said he was believed to have died from choking on an electrical cord. In a statement, Mac's parents say, "No punishment will ever bring our sweet boy back to us. We feel this sentence falls years short and is grossly feeble in its severity." His parents regret that he will never get to score a goal in soccer, have a sleepover with friends, learn to clean a fish, experience the thrill of a first kiss. They say they miss Mac every day. Josh Grant, CBC News, Vancouver.
To Kelowna now, where Mounties are investigating the sudden death of a toddler. Police, ambulance, and fire were called to a home on Richter Street shortly after noon yesterday. Inside, they found an 18-month-old toddler dead. Mounties, the coroner, and the Ministry of Child and Family Development are now looking into the death. Police in Prince Rupert say 2 people have died after a shooting in an office mall this morning. That includes the alleged shooter. Mounties say a 44-year-old man entered Ocean Center Mall around 8:30 and shot a woman before turning the gun on himself. The man was in critical condition and later died of his injuries in hospital. Mounties say the man knew the woman he killed. Prince Rupert's mayor says his office in City Hall was locked down and a lot of staff knew the people involved. Premier David Eby has offered his condolences to those impacted, and Mounties are asking anyone with information or dashcam footage to come forward. 2 robbers pointed their guns at staff and customers at a popular Commercial Drive cafe yesterday morning. Vancouver police say the 2 suspects raided Café du Soleil at the peak of the brunch run, leaving more than a dozen people traumatized and taking their valuables before escaping in a vehicle. 1 person suffered minor injuries. Anyone with information on the robbers is asked to contact VPD. Mounties in Surrey are looking into the discovery of a handgun at a high school on Friday. Sullivan Heights Secondary School staff first saw the gun in an image posted to social media before they found it on school property. The school notified parents. It's also working with Surrey Safe Schools to educate students on safety and reporting incidents of concern. Many caregivers of children on the autism spectrum are worried about the changes the province has made to funding services, and that's in a new report that surveyed more than 1,500 families.
Change is often very difficult or even traumatic for autistic children. They rely on routine and those established relationships with their service providers. They have that bond and that trust there, and dismantling that can be traumatic for autistic children.
BC overhauled its system by phasing out individual autism funding and replacing it with family connection hubs across the province by 2025. But 96% of families say they wouldn't choose the hubs to help their child. They say it would pull them away from their current service providers. The group, Autism BC, wants the province to maintain the existing programs until a policy review is done.
Solar panels have the ability to actually power all of Kansut, all of our wellness center here.
They're remote communities, often cut off from energy grids and most often Indigenous, and that's the case for Bella Bella. While the community relies on diesel for heating, it's looking for ways to go green. We'll have that story next. And thanks for being with us on our commercial-free live stream tonight. Alberta is becoming more of a hotspot for winter attraction. Calgary plans to host an international racing event next February, and a Canmore hotel group is planning to build a Nordic spa. As CBC's Dave Gilson and Helen Pike report, Alberta tourism industries hope these initiatives will bring an economic boost to the winter season.
We've seen it again. We saw this last year with supercars.
The Nitro Rallycross event will run February 4th and 5th during Calgary's Chinook Blast Winter Festival. Organizers say 1,000 horsepower electric vehicles will race on a snow and ice track at the Calgary Stampede Grandstand. They add it will also include entertainment and opportunities for the public to meet competitors from around the world. That includes Jamaican driver Fraser McConnell.
Just as exciting for the drivers as it is for the fans to watch. And, the cars are flying, more than 100 feet on any given track. And just bang turns, lots of dirt spray, in this case snow spray, and it's a wild ride.
The Motorsports Series was created by American action sports figure Travis Pastrana. Organizers say the event will include a worldwide broadcast. Carson Ackroyd with Tourism Calgary says the plan has been in the works for a few years and that it means an entertainment and financial boost for the city.
This is a truly unique event on the calendar in terms of racing to have cars on ice, and we think adding that to our winter festival mix will drive that many more people to come and visit our city during the wintertime, not just the summertime.
Mid-corner to get in front, he takes the lead again, brilliant driving.
Dave Gilson, CBC News, Calgary.
Basecamp Resorts has secured a location to build a Nordic spa in Canmore. CEO Sky McLean says plans include on-site lodging, food, the classic pools, and a mud bath.
I've always felt that Canmore really needs more experiences for people who don't necessarily want to hike up to that peak or mountain bike for 18 hours. People just want to come and enjoy the mountains and have some peace and quiet.
Scandinavian hydrotherapy has become the latest fad in the Rockies. Kananaskis Nordic Spa has been open since 2018. Group Nordique announced another spa just west of Calgary, the Harmony Spa, which has a projected 2025 opening. Elizabeth Torney-Booth is a freelance lifestyle writer.
Because I know the one in Kananaskis, people get anxious about going out there because it is they reach capacity and then you can't get in. And so I think that'll maybe calm people a little bit down if there's more options.
The plan here is still in its early stages with the hope to break ground on construction next year. Helen Pike, CBC News, Canmore.
For years, Bella Bella has relied on diesel for heating, but as Camille Vernier reports, they're going green to try reach energy self-sufficiency.
Surrounded by fjords, signs of change are popping up all over the seaside village of Bella Bella.
These few solar panels have the ability to actually power all of Kansut, all of our wellness center here.
This mother-to-be is proud of the Halsuk First Nation for making climate change action a priority.
Our goal is to have energy sovereignty as a nation, and part of that is the solar project.
Solar panels are just one of 10 solutions proposed by the Nation Climate Action Team.
We are a small community of about 1,600 people. Our carbon footprint isn't huge, but what we hope is that other communities, other municipalities can look at what we're doing and they can recognize they can also be the change.
Getting the community on board was instrumental in making the big switch and getting the money to make it happen.
Solar panel B. Where we now have successful funding to put solar panels just like here in Kansut onto our school, our community store, and our hall.
We have run aground here.
The transition was sparked by a disaster back in 2016. A barge crashed, then sank, spilling thousands of liters of diesel into pristine ocean waters.
When the Nathan E. Stewart ran aground, it was a huge shock for our community. It brought into the community consciousness just how real the risk is when we are shipping in oil and diesel to heat our community and meet the basic needs of our community, when today that's simply not a risk that we have to take anymore.
So step one for the team, putting an end to fossil fuel delivery by boat.
So we're about 75% converted for all of our homes in Bella Bella from oil to heat pumps.
And home renovations were completed to better insulate homes. And it's not just the environment coming out ahead, families as well.
The average home is saving $1,500 per year on heating costs and producing 5 tons less of greenhouse gas emissions per year per home.
The nation is also looking into vertical farming and biodiesel for marine vessels.
Some really beautiful things happening already.
Bella Bella is receiving federal funding to transition, but the team says they shouldn't be one of so few.
And I was so proud to be in Ottawa to accept this funding announcement along with these other progressive nations. But I know that this is a unique story and shouldn't just be a beautiful, unique story. It should be the standard. It should be the bare minimum for every First Nation, for each community really within Canada, that we're making a difference for our future generations and our relationship to Earth. Pillow like a cloud.
Hope that Bella Bella's green transition will inspire others to follow. Camille Vernier, Radio-Canada, Bella Bella.
Well, when it comes to his legacy around the environment, now former BC Premier John Horgan says he took a practical approach around emissions and projects, but his record has plenty of critics. As Yasmin Gandam reports, climate campaigners hope Premier David Eby will accomplish more.
We need, as a society, to recognize and acknowledge the territories that was expropriated from the First Peoples who have been here since time immemorial, and I think all British Columbians get that.
Before he became premier in 2017, then opposition leader John Horgan had plenty of criticism for many of the Liberal government's environmental policies, like the Site C Dam, liquefied natural gas, and forestry. But once in government, many of those policies remained. Horgan allowed Site C to continue despite opposition. Ken Boone felt left down. His farmland in the Peace Valley was expropriated for the mega project.
You know, we had such great hopes that, you know, finally maybe the project would be killed, and it just didn't happen.
Climate campaigners agree.
It's a very important milestone that we have the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act in place now, but it's overshadowed by a number of big industrial projects that are going forward. particularly LNG Canada, the Site C dam.
More than 2 years have passed since the province released its old growth strategic review, the work of 2 retired foresters. It made 14 recommendations to change how logging is done in BC, specifically prioritizing the health of ecosystems. One of the authors says he believes Horgan made strides, but the issues are just too vast.
Because there's no lack of intent and willingness to do this. It is just way, way harder than we thought. And so many things happened that we hadn't anticipated that caused delays.
The hope is for Premier David Eby's government to continue the work and prioritize climate change. But climate advocates say time is ticking.
It's not the same becoming a premier in 2022 compared to 2017. There's now even less time to take strong climate action.
Eby says he would like to continue to build on clean energy work. Yasmin Gantam, CBC News, Vancouver.
And here's a time lapse from Whistler Village today. Snow on the ground and clouds in the sky. Kuljit will have your full forecast next.
For 5 years, Jim and Bev Day's backyard and house in Surrey have been a hospital for injured birds of prey. Now the cages are coming down. The days are moving. This place just isn't big enough anymore.
We've outgrown our backyard and we've outgrown the house. Where we're moving to has a huge shop on it, all insulated. So, like, lots of times when we get busy, I end up playing, musical cages and musical rooms. The only one in the house hasn't had birds in it has been the bedroom.
The days started out breeding and looking after domestic birds. Then a vet gave them an injured red-tailed hawk. That got them started nursing birds of prey back to health. Mostly they get owls. This is the first to be moved.
Got lucky. Whoops, only one. Here. Thank you. Settle down. Get your wings in.
The Day's new home is on 3 acres in Surrey. They need the space. What started out as a small backyard operation has become a non-profit society that nursed 150 birds last year. Now they'll be able to handle even more.
Well, with what we've got here, and if funding comes in, we should be able to handle up to 400 birds at a time here with no problem.
Is there that much demand?
Well, hopefully not. But we've had, just in birds of prey, 30 birds on hand at one time, and that's an awful lot of birds to look after.
With the extra space, the Days will also take in songbirds and ducks, something they didn't do before. And they plan to stay at this new site for a while.
I could never stop doing it.
You just like helping birds?
I love it. I really do. They're gorgeous, and their personalities are also different. Each one has a different personality. All the injuries are different. You hardly ever end up with the same injury or like that. It's beautiful. It's a good feeling.
The Days say they need volunteers and material like old plywood to get their new location going. Anyone who'd like to help can call the Owl Rehabilitation Society at 591-9573.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. CBC British Columbia's annual Food Bank Day returns on December 2nd. Join us for special broadcasts of your favorite CBC Radio 1 programs and fundraising for BC's food banks. And enjoy candlelit carols and joyous holiday favorites at Christmas with Corleone, December 16th to 19th. Celebrate the season and get your tickets at corleone.org.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
All right, it's time for our BC-wide weather forecast. Kuljit Kayla is in for Johanna Wagstaffe tonight. Kuljit, we're seeing more and more rain since yesterday. Are we going to be getting more?
We had some scattered showers beneath since last night, a little bit of rain here and there, and it's really going to start tonight and into overnight tomorrow. If we take a look at our system's forecast, right around midnight, this low pressure system is finally going to push that the high ridge out of the way for most of BC, starting around Tofino, starting north of Whistler, and then making its way down south to the rest of Vancouver, stretching out to Hope, Abbotsford, and Merritt, bringing accumulations of up to 20 to 30 millimeters in some spots. And it's going to continue to be that way for the next few days. Most of it's happening tomorrow. 40% risk of rain for midweek. And then by Friday, we're going to get some more rain and 25 millimeters expected for the weekend. Here's what the rain totals look like for most of the lower mainland. Looks like the Tri-Cities will get the most amount at 75 millimeters of rain through there. 60 for Vancouver, lots for the North Shore, and plenty for Whistler as well. Tomorrow's forecast across BC. The only place that's getting some snow, Williams Lake and Prince George sitting at 1 degree. They'll get a mix of rain and snow. Otherwise, regular temperatures for the rest of BC. And for the 7-day forecast, still sitting in the double digits by the end of the week. And it'll be until next week and into the weekend that we'll start to see temperatures drop as that rain continues on and off until Sunday night. Benit?
So lots of refreshing rain.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Kuljit.
You're welcome.
To football now. BC Lions quarterback Nathan Rourke had a breakout season this year. Despite being sidelined for many games due to injury, Rourke won the CFL's award for Most Outstanding Canadian. And as Josh Grant reports, his skills have also drawn attention from south of the border.
The BC Lions bowed out of the CFL playoffs in the semi-finals, losing to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 28-20 last Sunday. But the story of the season was 24-year-old quarterback Nathan Rourke. He threw for over 3,000 yards and 25 touchdowns in just 10 games. After starting the season 8-1, Rourke sprained his foot and had to have surgery, but his performance was still impressive enough to have over 20 NFL teams come knocking.
I never had a true opportunity at the NFL level. Not as a quarterback, and that's been something that I've wanted to at least try for a very long time, and it's fortunate enough to have an opportunity and try to see where that goes, and understanding that I have a heck of an opportunity still here with the Lions.
Born in Victoria, Rourke grew up in Ontario before heading to the U.S. He played 3 years with the Ohio University Bobcats as a quarterback and wide receiver. The New York Giants invited him to a tryout after college, but he didn't make the cut. In 2020, Rourke was drafted by the BC Lions in the second round. 2 years later, he was a starter. A CFL writer says Rourke worked with a Vancouver-based kinesiologist during the pandemic, and it paid off in a big way.
He just completely redefined his mechanics, how he throws the ball. And now you're talking about a guy who is the most accurate quarterback in a single season in CFL history, and who throws the ball with incredible velocity.
Rourke is under contract with the Lions until the end of 2023, but the CFL allows players to opt out of their deals if they're given a shot at the NFL.
Nathan Rourke, from what I've seen, has all the tools. Talent-wise, he is better than many NFL backup quarterbacks. He'll be poised quite well if that sort of mid-level starter goes down to take over and show something. He is truly a guy who, if he gets that opportunity, I'm not sure he gives it up.
Rourke has scheduled workouts with several NFL teams and hopes to earn a spot with one of them next season. Josh Grant, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is your late news for November 21st. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, visit our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1, and that starts tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Good night.